Hey there, it's Richard Geller. I hope your day and your evening and everything has gone well. Hope it's all going well for you. Mitch and I are here. Want to work with you once again. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing great. I am doing very good.
How's your evening going?
You know, it couldn't be any better. It's cooling off around here, and just it's a great evening.
Good, excellent. Well, let's dive in. We had some great Q&A calls and very encouraging and some great results from our students, and really excited about it. And we promised that we would keep delivering this training. So let's go. What we want to do is finish up on this section on marketing your house. What we're going to do is talk about two things primarily. We're going to talk about the closing process, and we're going to talk about the 9-day house sale. And we talk about the closing process. We have to say that in some cases we can't be all that specific because we don't know your laws in your state, and that is something that does vary a lot with states. So you know, that's just something to keep in mind. So let's talk about settlement and title, and of course this does vary a lot. But let's start with this bogeyman, the SAFE Act. Someone asked me what is the SAFE Act yesterday, and so a lot of times people pretend to know something because they don't want to be stupid. But you should always ask questions, even if you think it's an obvious answer. And other people will go, "Oh, I'm glad they asked. I don't know either." So, you know, think about it this way. What happened is about in the 2000s was that a lot of folks bought homes based on an initial payment, and the payment that was initially offered them was very low because it was going to go up. It was a negative amortization loan. It was an interest-only loan. It was a option arm loan, if you remember those. And so then when the loan adjusted upwards, they couldn't afford the house. And so all this housing crash happened, and all these loans blew up. And although I don't believe that's really the whole reason for the housing crash, Congress wanted to lock the barn door after the horse already left. So they said, okay, we're going to have our first major federal regulation of mortgages, which has never really happened before. Mortgages were really regulated primarily, not entirely, but primarily by states. But with some exceptions. So the SAFE Act basically said that everybody creating mortgages cannot, they can't have balloon payments, they can't have interest only with a balloon, they can't have loans that don't amortize out, you know, that don't pay off, and they can't also get a loan unless somebody who's like acting in a certain capacity of responsibility looks at their income and says that they have the income to pay off a loan. So basically, that, you know, that's the idea of the SAFE Act. And so how does that translate into real life, Mitch?
Well, if you were a person like myself and you were buying houses and owner financing them and either holding them or selling the note, it meant that I had to be a licensed loan originator to be able to talk about terms inside my own house, which I guess, as you can imagine, I strongly disagree with and hope it changes. But right now, we got to kind of do what we got to do. At first, I looked at it as a really bad thing, and I kicked the ground, and I was really disturbed by it. But there are some upsides to it, whether you like it or not. And here's the upsides. The upsides are it's going to drastically limit some of your competition because they're going to go home. They're not going to want to deal with it. It's not that hard to deal with. And then when you learn to deal with it and you learn what you need to do, then it actually becomes another part of the puzzle that you have to delegate. I just don't like it that they're making me delegate it, but since they are making me delegate it, I have to delegate it. So either that or I have to go down and get a loan origination license, which I elected not to do. I elected to set up, you know, someone who will pull the 1003 app, will pull the credit, will you know, do a background check, we'll get all the disclosures signed, and we'll do all that stuff for me for a small fee. And so that's just one less thing my office has to do now. I don't like it because it's not in my control, which means sometimes I have to work on other people's time frames. It's an extra meeting for my people. They meet with me, I decide I like them, we decide, I can talk price, I can talk down payment, and I can talk about what maybe they used to pay in their old apartment or their old house, or what their budget might be for a new house, but I can't name interest rate and term and give them a payment. So, but once I know we're in the ballpark, then I send them over to my loan origination lady. They'll charge you anywhere from $150 to some people are trying to charge $450 for this. But it also does another thing. These people are professional mortgage, lenders, and they pull this credit and they look at this credit and they will tell me they're very good at knowing how close this person is to a new loan. So I get some really good advice on whether this person will be able to refi anytime soon. And of course, I would love for all my people to get a refi and cash me out of my house where I could make my $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 profit right now. I always choose that because I'm a firm believer that when the window is open, the window of opportunity is open, you need to jump through it because it will close. So if people are given loans and you can cash out today, then you cash out, because there's always going to be time to make owner finance loans. That's the easiest part. The hardest part of an owner finance loan is exiting with all your cash. So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about it, Richard.
So are you allowed to look at their credit report yourself, even though you're not the mortgage person?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to look at it. I don't really care to look at it. I just want to talk to the person who's looking at it, that's a professional, and say, what do we look like? They say, well, he's got this number score, he's got this, this, and that, and he's really close to getting a new loan. We could get this stuff removed, or we can send some letters. Or, this guy's a bank robber. Everywhere he goes, he has a problem. He's in problems now. I just want to make a decision on whether to put him in the house or not. So, I kind of just, I let them earn their money. I let them do what I pay them to do.
So you avoid the burden of having to look over someone's credit report and make decisions based on their credit report yourself.
Well, if it's a borderline thing, I might want to go over there and take a look at it and say, show me what's going on. But most of the time, these things aren't borderline. They're either all one way or they're all another way. They're not just kind of half bad people. If they're bad people, they're bad people, and it shows up. If they were a good person that had a problem, then you can see how they were good, and you can see where the problem popped up, and then you can see how they got straightened back out again.
Right.
And I don't, the fee that you pay these people is not all going in their pocket. Those credit reports and background checks cost money. So like if I'm paying someone $200, I'm going to have to pay 35 or 50 of it anyways. You know what? Maybe even 60. So it's not all extra expense. Some of it's some of the expense that you were paying, already. So.
How often does it happen that you pay the expense and then the deal falls through?
Well, I only pay if the house sells.
So really, it's not an expense to you. It's just a cost. It's associated like a closing cost is what it amounts to. Closing cost.
Right. It's a closing cost.
Okay. And what do they do exactly? Do they actually meet with the borrower, with your prospective buyer, or do they just do it all on the phone?
Well, I'm allowed to give a very light application from that company to them, to my buyers or my prospective buyers. So I have a light application that they have filled out, and then I get an appointment set up between the two. I have the mortgage loan originator call them and set up an appointment to meet them. It's generally the same day that I meet with them because they have cleared some time or they have the day off, and so I just call the loan when I like the person sitting in front of me as a prospective buyer of my house. I just pick up the phone and call the mortgage officer and say, look, can you meet with someone today, like right now? And they usually clear time for me, and they they send the people over. They've got a light application already filled out, and then she finishes it off with all the disclaimers. The other thing is now we have to wait 7 days of the cooling off period, which I don't like. I used to put people in houses pretty fast. So the licensed loan originator will have them fill out everything they need, the 1003, and basically how I looked at it is these people have to be turned down for a more, reasonable standard FHA or conventional loan before they can take a higher interest rate loan like the one we're giving them. I mean, that's kind of, we actually give them a turn down letter for a real institutional loan, and then the licensed loan originator makes a suggestion that the owner would think about financing you, and these will be the terms. And so that's how I've been kind of looking at it. I kind of look at it like they are trying to go apply for a traditional loan, and I hope they get it. 9 times out of 10 they don't, and then we move to the owner financing choice.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I generally give them 2 choices. One that's right in the ballpark of where they were at, their payments and everything, and another one that's not in the ballpark of their payments, but the years are a lot shorter, and so now they have choices even from me. They usually always take the first choice, which was in their budget, but I do give them, a 10-year amortized choice, just to say that I gave them more than one choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hard adjustment to make when you're used to just, meeting someone, sitting them down in the office, drawing the contract, having them sign up, giving you a down payment, put them in the house. Like I could do it in 5 hours, 4 hours. And now I've got an extra little step, but hopefully we don't have to live with this step forever, but while it's here, I look at it as a little bit of a hindrance that's separating the men from the boys.
Yeah, I remember doing business. I worked with somebody who did business in Hawaii as a contractor. And Hawaii is famous for having extensive work rules and extensive unions and extensive public regulations and bureaucracy that's like worse than any of the other states. And I said, isn't it difficult doing business in Hawaii? And he said, well, not really. He said, because we've learned how to master the bureaucracy, and we are actually, we outdo our competition because we just work with the bureaucracy really, really well. We've gotten really good at it. And I think what you're saying is the same thing, is this is just something to adapt, and in a way it eliminates some of the competition. Now, what I'm hearing is it's not really a big deal, is that this loan officer is interviewing the borrower and trying to get them qualified for a better loan, and they usually can't, so then they'll go with our loan, and then we've complied with the SAFE Act. Now, it's not very difficult. It doesn't seem very hard at all.
It's not hard. It's just it's a longer process with another set of people involved, and it's just different. It's not what I was used to doing for the last 15 years, So, but that's all right. We've made our changes. It took a little bit of trying to find some mortgage people that would be Johnny on the spot and that really wanted to do it, and took it seriously and knew that time was an issue. For me, time is always an issue. The moment a person likes a house and wants to give me $5,000 or $10,000 and says so, there's nothing better can happen in between now and when we close. They're not going to offer me more money. The house isn't going to go, somehow my debt on my house isn't going to reduce. I mean, so the time between when someone says, yeah, I want to buy the house, here's my money, and the time we close, I look at that as a very important time. And the shorter that time is, the better off I am. And this has added some time. They've actually put in 7 days. And I don't know if it's the federal side or the state side, but I think it's the federal side. If it's over 12% interest, then you got to wait 2 weeks to close. So I'm not generally over 12%, so I don't care, but I have been over 12% in mobile homes. So I have to have a lot longer cooling off period. What we generally do is we just put them in under a lease, and then they can cool off for however many days they need to cool off, and then we close and make them the owner at that point. But the down payment gets renamed as non-refundable deposits, rent deposits. So that's the glue that holds everything together, is the non-refundable rent deposit when we move them in quickly.
So the same thing applies to mobile homes as well.
Anything you can live in. If it's your home, it applies.
Okay.
If it's a lot, it doesn't apply. If it's an investment property, it doesn't apply. But if they're moving into it to live in it, it applies. And it doesn't matter if it's a cardboard box.
Okay. All right. So these rules and these things, is the mortgage loan officer going to tell you what these are and give you what you said is the light application? Are they going to provide that to you?
Well, what they'll do is they'll give you a lot of RESPA docs and stuff. But you know, since I'm going to an attorney that deals explicitly or very much is mainstream into the SAFE Act, when I go to closing, I get all the other stuff that I need there. So, you know, you definitely want to be closing or at least have some kind of advice about the SAFE Act. And let me tell you this, don't get discouraged and don't think, and I'm even going to put my own disclaimer here, you know, I'm not giving legal advice on this because some of this stuff is gray at best. I didn't write these laws. I just have to try to read them and understand them. And I tried that once and it didn't work very well. I didn't understand anything. So I went to some professionals who went to school and got their bar association license, and they became attorneys. And if you go to 7 of those, you might hear 7 different interpretations of that. So I would narrow it down to someone who specifically deals in that in your community. Like in our community, we got 1 or 2 people that all they do is help investors with the SAFE Act and close their deals and keep them compliant. And that's the guy I go to. Because if you just go to, you know, someone who's practicing family law and litigation, and then you, first of all, they're going to have to sit down and read all this stuff, and they're probably going to have to charge you for all the time they spend reading the law, which could be some extensive time because, you know, our lawmakers don't make anything easy. They make it as complicated as they possibly humanly can. And so don't get discouraged if you talk to a couple of different attorneys and they give you a couple of different answers. Just go with someone who specifically deals in that arena, specifically, daily, and then I would say go with what they say. I mean, what can a court ask you to do besides that? What more could they ask you to do? Right,
yeah, no,
Richard? I mean,
yeah. Basically, I just want to say you don't really want to freak out about this, and I don't mean like you shouldn't follow it and you shouldn't do what it says to do, but I just find a lot of people get freaked out about these things, and then what happens is they lose deals or they lose sleep or they lose both deals and sleep because they're so worried about it. It's very unlikely, even if you made mistakes here, anybody's gonna catch it, and it's really only probable they'd catch it if there's a lawsuit or some litigation or something like that. And it's just like, just do your best here, you know, but don't freak out about it. It's not a big deal. You know, now there's a couple of possible ways you can avoid the SAFE Act. One of them is that the intent of the law, at least the federal law, was to govern loans with people that are in the business of regularly selling houses. So if you're not regularly selling houses, you really don't have to comply with the SAFE Act. Now, seeing a lawyer about this, but our understanding is that when you do the first 5 houses in 12 months, you don't need to comply with the SAFE Act because you're not technically in the business of selling houses for, you know. You should check into that. So, you know, that's a possible way that you may be able to avoid the SAFE Act, at least at the beginning. And secondly, realize that, you know, just be patient with yourself about it, and just, I tell you, it's not that hard. What you want to do is you want to find this loan originator person, and, you know, your real estate agent probably knows somebody you can interview for this. Pretty easy to find. I think finding the lawyer has been harder. In some states, it's hard to find a lawyer to knows a lot about this. But the mortgage originator is really easy because they're all over the place. Every real estate agent knows one. And you just have to find someone you can work with. But the lawyer is a little harder because in some places like California, they don't actually close deals with lawyers. And finding a good real estate lawyer who knows the SAFE Act is a little more challenging than it is in a state like Texas where you, or Virginia, where you close deals with lawyers in their offices.
Yeah, I mean, we close the title. We have the choice. We can close the title companies too, but there's a lot of funding goes on at lawyers' offices. The other thing I'm going to tell you is that there's no case law right now, and Richard's absolutely right. The way that there's no mortgage loan police out there. There's no policeman looking for you. There's no red flag in a computer somewhere that says, oh, this guy just did his sixth house. But what happens is, if you get in a lawsuit with one of the people that moved into your house that you own or finance a house to, that attorney is the one who's going to start policing to find out if you conformed. So the moral of that story is A, don't do things that'll get you into lawsuits. If someone moves into a house or something and it's been 2 or 3 days, or someone changes their mind, you don't keep their $5,000. Don't stand on principle at this point. Give them the money back, get them out of your life, find someone who really wants this house, because that's what a home owner finance deal should be anyways. When I talk to people about, after I've shown them the house, I say, what do you think of the house? If they say, well, it's okay, it'll do, that's not who I'm selling my house to. They're denied. I don't even need to see their credit report. They're denied. If they're excited about it, that's who I want. So if you've got someone who wants their money back, they're obviously not excited, just give them their money back and go away. One of the fastest way to get in lawsuits is to keep someone's money and don't get them happily into a house. And beyond that, if someone's in the house and there's something going on, do your very best to settle right now with the person and make them happy. If the air conditioner broke the day after they bought the house, make some kind of agreement with them. Do not go fix their air conditioner. Hand them the check and have them sign a release that you're off the hook for that repair and any other repairs, in the future, like kind of just like when an insurance company settles with you and they hand you a check, you sign a release. But don't get in arguments over things that are a couple of $100 or maybe even a couple of $1,000 when these lawsuits can cost, lawsuits a couple of $1,000 goes like water from a faucet. So the moral of the story is do things right, treat people good, don't get into arguments, and if you get into a tight place, write the guy a small check to leave and go away and get your release. Anything to add to that, Richard?
Yeah, really, don't generate bad karma.
Yeah,
That's basically it. It just, generate good karma even if you're like in the right and they're wrong, because it's just much, much better not to have somebody get upset with you for a lot of reasons. Now, I will say this too, as a practical matter, I don't know what the penalties are for violating the SAFE Act. I don't think it's very likely you're going to get in trouble if you try their best and you make some mistake. But I do think that the people we're dealing with also, sometimes they're poor and they, have a lot of problems in their life. So this means two things. Number one, it can mean that they're occasionally could be desperate and you don't want to mess them up, and you want to be respectful of their situation. And it could also mean that they don't necessarily have a lot of money to go find attorneys and sue you. I'm not saying that you should go screw them over. It's quite the opposite. But I just think that people's concern about this tends to be overblown, and it interferes with their ability to do business. And I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to be positive and upbeat, because this is not a big deal at all. And just do your best on it, and don't get, feeling like this is like a big deal. It's just a little thing. And these are just, normal things that are in business. The government puts these hurdles up. Hey, what else is new? What else is new for being an entrepreneur, right, Mitch?
That's right. I've been in court 3 times in over 1,100 houses. So, that's pretty good odds. And I learned in those 3 times that I should have just bought the air conditioner. I should have just handled it.
Right.
One of the reasons happened was I just kept blowing the person off. If you've got a person that's upset with you, you do not blow them off. You go down and you sit down and you get to the bottom of it, and you try to get some resolution. But what will really make a person upset is if you just don't answer your phone or don't deal with it.
Right.
So, and I made that mistake early in my career. I thought it would just go away, and it didn't go away.
Yeah, don't be afraid. And here's another tip for dealing with these issues. If somebody gets really strong with you about wanting all this money or whatever, don't be afraid of saying, I'm going to give you, let's say they ask you for $5,000. I'm just making this up. Don't be afraid to draw the line and say, I'm going to pay you $1,000. Today is Wednesday, and by Friday, if I will have it for you, or else my offer's withdrawn. And just see how often they're going to give in, and they'll say, okay, I'll go ahead. I have found that every time practically when someone demands a bunch of money, when I make a small settlement offer and just leave it on the table, they come back to me and say, okay. And then I do a full settlement and release, and it's done, and they're out of my life. I'm willing to offer people small sums to get rid of them, give them a deadline, and I found that every time I've done this, I've had people accept it and move on, every time. So just because they ask you for a lot of money, these people are usually hand to mouth, and if you just give them a little money and you tell them you're going to get it immediately and my offer's off the table by Friday, they're going to respond. What do you think, Mitch? Have you done that yourself?
Yes, I have, and it works very well. And the secret was the deadline. It can't be too long. They have to make a pretty quick decision. It's fear of loss, so that's a lot of why they do it. They don't really, like Richard said, have the money to go hire the time, or all the time you spend doing this, you can't go to work. The problem is with people that don't work, or are not working at some point after they moved into your house, because they've got a lot of time. And
Nothing
I
to
think
lose
the settlement,
sometimes.
Yeah, nothing to lose. Like the three people that I ended up going to court with, I'm convinced they were going to sue the next guy that they dealt with, and I just happened to draw their number. It wasn't going to matter who they dealt with. That person was going to end up in court with them, because that was their idea of how they were going to survive.
Right. Yeah. I think you're probably right. But I do find the quick settlement, small sums, quick settlement, and getting a settlement agreement really, really works.
Let me just give you one red flag. Some people will want to they'll look at someone who's disabled and they make a great check, and they'll want to put this disabled person in this house. The problem is with a disabled person or someone who's getting a government check is if they don't have an address, that check doesn't come anymore. And so they almost have no choice but to pull every resource they have to stay in the house, which eventually quickly leads to the attorney. So if you're looking at someone who's disabled and their only source of income is from this check from the government, say $2,000 or $2,500 a month, just know when they get behind, they will dig their claws into the ground, and you will have to drag them out by their heels, and they're the ones who are going to get the attorneys, because once they lose their house, they also lose their check. You follow me, Richard?
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
So I don't sell houses to people that their only source of income is a disability check. I don't sell houses to people where the breadwinner, the guy who's making the big money, is the guy on disability, and the other spouse is just making like $500 or $600, because when they get divorced or when they get mad at each other, I'm going to have to fight this guy who has no place to go, and I'm threatening to take his paycheck away from him too, in a way. You know what I mean? Because
right.
You have to have a house address for them to send you a check. So.
Well, you also, you can't. I don't think you could discriminate based on disability and things like that. So you have to be careful about that.
Well, like I said, I'm not an attorney, and everything I say is not always right. But
yeah,
I recognize scenarios that have happened to me. Do with it what you want. Make sure you're legal.
Oh yeah, no, make sure you're legal. So if you're going to not sell a house to somebody, just make sure you're legal and you're on legal ground. I mean, these things are, they're done all the time, for a reason, and the reason is someone's income isn't reliable or something like that. That's all. And very, very good point. Super good point. And there's also, I'll tell you one other thing, Mitch. There's many states, and I'm not sure the federal law, but many states have these elder elder abuse statutes, and attorneys can use those against you for somebody that's really old, and you know, you could just be in all kinds of trouble if somebody wants to go after you with their, you know, on a plaintiff's case. So it's just another argument for having a good practical lawyer that you run things by when you have a question.
Yep.
The elder abuse statutes are being used by lawyers now against lenders, banks. So you know, they didn't think they had to worry about anything like that. Well, they do, as it turns out. Some lawyers have gotten hold of that and said, these banks with their mortgage foreclosures are abusing the elderly people under these statutes, and there's serious money that is being paid out on these cases. So just be careful.
Well, it brings another subject. Part of this problem can be helped with liability insurance. You know, so a lot of these can, if you have insurance, well, that's why you pay for it, so you don't have to worry about these things.
Yeah. So what kind of liability insurance can you get?
Well, you can get some kind of liability insurance, and then you can get an umbrella insurance policy for yourself. And there's, you know, they sell insurance for just about any kind of problem. You just have to go price it out and decide if the fee is worth the comfort. You know, for me, it has always been pretty good. But the thing about when you have those insurance, they insure a specific company. Just make sure that when you do your contracts and stuff, that you always write that company's name correctly, like it would be at your insurance policy. Like one time, I had a problem because I didn't put the LLC stuff at the end of my company name. But I don't want to dwell too much on this negative stuff because, you know, when I did have to go to court those 3 times, it wasn't fun. It was kind of a bummer and cost me a little bit of money. But in my career, it was a pittance. You know, in all the good things that happened to me and all the deals that went right and all the happy people that live in houses, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of happy, good deals. And, you know, the bumps in the road that you hit is just kind of the cost of doing business.
Good. Okay. Well, yeah, we can move on. Well, on insurance, one thing I want to say, sometimes you can get some of the big multi-line companies. You were coming in a little muffled there, Mitch. I don't know what that was.
Okay.
Oh, that's better now. Some of the multi-line companies will give you a homeowner's policy, and they'll also give you a landlord-tenant policy, and they'll give you a liability, and they'll give you an umbrella, you know, kind of like in a package deal, and it can be very cheap that way, I've noticed. In other words, when you get your, like, Farmers, State Farm, Nationwide, these companies that do all these insurance, if you get a package from them, a lot of times you can say, oh, I work out of my house and I have a little business with buying some real estate. And then they're, oh, real estate? Oh, that's fine. We have this other policy we can get you, and it's really cheap. So it's something that you keep in mind in insurance. I've said this before. You really also want to get a good insurance person on your team. But a lot of times these multi-line companies have these amazingly cheap insurance deals where you know, you could just get it added on. And like you said, you have to make sure that your entity has coverage. You know, but a homeowner's insurance covers yourself, or landlord-tenant covers you, and that's a good thing also. You know, it's a good thing to have that insurance. Big believer in that.
Let me say this: you know, a lot of people get confused because, man, I don't want to do your program because of all the liability. Well, actually, when you own or finance houses, you have less liability than you do when you're a landlord, for sure. Because, I mean, just think about it. If you're at your house and you live in the house and you have a mortgage payment to your bank, I mean, when you fall off the balcony and break your leg, do you go sue the person you make your mortgage payment to? No. You know, it wasn't their fault. They're not responsible for that. They're just responsible for giving you a loan. So the owner finance method relieves you of a lot of responsibilities that you would have if you were renting. You find that to be true?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The exposure, really, the major exposure is going to be first of all, when you own the house, during the time you own the house without anybody having bought it, because you're holding title to the house, so you're liable for things that could happen. And then there's some liability for selling the house. Like, there's always some liability when you sell a house. But To some degree, it's pretty minimal. I mean, look how many millions and millions of houses are sold every year, and the system doesn't grind to a halt. The worst place in this is probably California, where people get sued right and left for anything. But even there, most things go pretty smoothly. But I would recommend you have insurance, just in case. So I agree with you. It's a lot less likely you're going to run into litigation and legal problems selling houses than it is owning them and landlording. That's for sure. Very good point.
We have some mini storages, and one time my wife disposed of the wrong storage, or actually she didn't dispose of it, but the person that she told to dispose of a storage misunderstood the number, and so they threw away some perfectly good stuff from some family who didn't deserve for their stuff to be thrown away. And it was a really big stressful thing at the time. And then all of a sudden I just remembered, we have wrongful disposal insurance from the company that insured our mini storages. And I just said, that's what that insurance is for. That's why we paid it all these years, and I'm not going to worry about it anymore. And I handed it to the insurance company, and I didn't worry about it again. The insurance company made right by the people as best they could. And it was an honest mistake, but boy, it was a relief to that moment when I remembered, I have insurance specifically for this problem. My insurance man informed me of it. And it was just like a complete calming, okay, I'm sorry this happened and I feel bad about it, but there's nothing I can do at this point except turn it over to my insurance company and go about my life. And it was wonderful from that point of view.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, I've never regretted having insurance. I have found it gives you peace of mind. It gives you great peace of mind. Here's an example. Let's say you make a mistake in your advertising for somebody. Let's say they say you discriminated or something like that, or they go to, well, insurance has this thing called advertising injury or something like that. I forget the term for it. But if somebody claims that you owe them money based on your advertising, you're insured. And that's just one example. There's a million examples of these things you wouldn't even think of in your business where you could make a mistake and the insurance company's got your back because they've got it in the contract. And I have found a lot of people like to diss insurance companies. I have found that they really want to just honor the contract. I've never had a bad experience. I know people will argue with us. I've never had a bad experience with an insurance company. That sometimes I didn't like what they said, but I felt they were right. And I know there's people that have been screwed by insurance companies, but I found that in my dealings with them, I generally go with a really big company, a good company, a well-known company, and they usually try to honor the contract. If it's not in the contract, they're not going to pay it. If it says they're not going to pay it, they're not going to pay it. But people expect them to go against the contract. Well, they're not. They're just going to do exactly what the contract says. And I personally have been very happy with my insurance. When they've had a problem, I've never been disappointed with my insurance.
I've had the same experiences, and part of the reasons why, another big reason why there's some lawsuits in the real estate business is because people don't insure or don't make sure that the title's clear. And that can cause some real problems, if you start selling houses owner finance to people and you don't have clear title yourself. That can cause some major problems. And that's, maybe some of the aggravation that caused some of this regulation to come down, because people were either knowingly doing it and trying to get away with it, or they actually didn't know. But either way, the guy who's living in the house, he doesn't care. He's paid all these payments, and maybe he made some improvements to the house, and he's got his family settled in just to find out that there's no way he'll ever get clean title. That's bad news. So I'm starting to these days, I always buy things with title insurance, always. And then when I resell them, I hadn't had to, when I do the wraparound mortgage and put another person in with owner financing, I haven't gone back and gotten that person a title policy as a rule when it just went from me to them. What I've learned is if it's gone from me to them and then they get foreclosed on, and then I would sell it to another person. I need to get a title policy at that point because we don't know how the person that was in the house that I put in muddied up the title before I had to foreclose on them. And I know foreclosure is supposed to wipe some things out, or wipe a whole bunch of things out, if not almost everything except for maybe IRS liens or some superior liens. But there's other things that can go on those houses, especially like judgments for people with a similar name or a like name. We live in a Hispanic community, so if I sell a house to someone with a very popular surname like Gonzalez, there might be judgments from all kinds of Gonzalez's placed on that house that aren't him. And if you had a title policy before you resold the house to the next person, it would have cleared all that up and given that person a fresh start.
So you're
Have you
saying,
ever had that happen?
yeah, well, I generally will always get the title insurance. And then there's a special policy that we get when we do a foreclosure in California. There's a, when we do we're going to cover this next time, but when you do like substitution of trustee and you appoint someone to do the foreclosure, there's title insurance that you purchase at that time. I don't know exactly how it works. Maybe it just protects the trustee, but I get your point.
What I'm doing now is with the SAFE Act and some laws passed about wraparound mortgages and stuff. It's just a lot safer to let the title company cover you. And so now I just get a title policy for everybody. If they're buying my house, I'm paying the title policy, and they have to pay for a year's worth of insurance. And I try to collect as much fees for closing costs as I can. But generally, the closing costs are going to be on me because I got as much as I could in the down payment. So I'm paying generally the closing costs and including a title policy. Their job is to bring the down payment and have a year's worth of insurance. And I do that now religiously.
So what's your closing costs running you then on a typical house in dollars?
Well, you got a title policies, what is it, like 3% or
I
got a system that does this, so I haven't done it in so long. If I sound a little ignorant, it's because I've got an office assistant that does this. But we pay for a title policy, and then usually, like when I get out of my attorney's office on a $65,000 sale of a house, I'll have paid, $850 in closing costs.
Right.
Yeah. It's just the cost of business, but it covers all the bases. It gives everyone title. It keeps you out of trouble.
Right.
Make sure all the disclosures are done and everything's done right. And I just look at it as a cost of doing business. Instead of making $24,000 on that house, I made instead of making $25,000 on the house, I made 24. It's still not a bad day, and I did it right.
Right. Yeah, and now a lot of people have asked about who does the note. Well, all you do is you say what the terms are in the purchase agreement, and then the escrow or the settlement agent does the note. Just have them do all the work. I don't type up notes. It's been a long time since I typed up a note or had anybody I know type up a note, because I usually now you have to look. They use a form, and you got to look at the form. But the title company or the escrow will have a note that they use. Is that what you're doing, Mitch, or how do you do the form? Did you have your lawyer do your first time, or how do you do it?
Well, I've done it a lot of different ways. I had a lawyer do it, and then I made my own template, because that's really all the lawyers were doing, was making a template and putting the information in the right blank. I figured I could do that, so then I made my own template, and I was closing my own deals at my own office. And then things got a little more complicated, so I started using the attorneys. And the attorneys, generally, that you close with are hooked up with a title company, too. So you can get title insurance right through the attorney. He's like a subsidiary of the title company. And so if we need title policy, which, like I just said, I always get now, the attorney orders it, but instead of closing at the title company's office and them charging you closing fees, you close at the attorney's office and he charges you the fees, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But if you went through the title company's lawyers would draw up your docs.
Yeah, the advantage of doing it that way is if you have your own lawyer do the note, which you can do, the lawyer's going to pick up a form somewhere that they have on their system and just modify it. But you have to keep it up to date all the time, because if the laws are changed or they update their forms, and they do update these, some of them fairly often, you have to have it changed to reflect the update. So sometimes it's easier to have the one that the title company is going to use, just to use that. And we talked about title insurance. Binders versus policies, I just want to say that we talked about this on our Q&A calls recently. If you're going to buy a house and sell it again in like a year, then you can get a binder. And it's usually called a 110 binder. It's 110% of the price. And basically the insurance company gives you, the title insurance company gives you title insurance, and then they issue the actual policy. So you're covered, but if you resell the property in a year, then that's actually like the 10% goes, and so they don't really charge you very much for that. So that's what I do. Basically, it saves you having to buy 2 title policies for owners' policies. I don't know if they have it for the lenders. It's not usually done for lenders, but it's done for owners, which is could be kind of expensive. So it saves you money. So if they don't know about that, just get somebody there that knows about it. Because I never found that any of the insurance companies didn't do that, but sometimes the reps don't know about it because no one ever asked for it. So now you know about it and you'll ask for it. Let's go on to big issue, which is transferring title or not. And when we talk about foreclosures and note servicing, which we're going to do next time, we're going to be talking about how it can be difficult in foreclosure states to get somebody out. So you're going to want to look at other vehicles. For example, if you do a lease option, you can get a non-refundable, in most states you can get a non-refundable deposit, which is like your down payment. You get monthly payments, which are lease payments, but they're really like a purchase payment. And you can still sell that house with a note to an investor and get regular cash flow. I mean, it's virtually the same as if you're doing a wrap. It's like the same cash flows. The papers are different, but you wouldn't know it when you get the check. The check looks the same. There really isn't a lot of difference. The only difference is really, from your point of view, is if you have to if you end up with someone who's not pay, well, there's 2 differences. First of all, if you do this right, you can do it where they own the house pretty much. You don't do anything to it. They have to do everything. They pay the taxes. They have to do everything, just like they own the property. Now, they may not do that. They may screw up. They may not have insurance. They may flood the house. They may not mow the lawn and let it all, the landscaping go bad. They may do all kinds of things. And technically, you still own the house. But if you're lease optioning with the theory that you're just getting rid of a house, like you would if you sold the house, you don't really have to worry about that, really. But you do have to have insurance, and you do have to be kind of concerned about it because you may get the house back. Nevertheless, I think in a state like Michigan or maybe Ohio, Minnesota, I can't remember. Some of these states have just really expensive, difficult foreclosure processes. They're judicial, so you have to go to court. They have these redemption periods, and they're just really lengthy. So I would do either that, or I would do a contract for deed. And I'd probably do a contract for deed, otherwise called a land contract, instead of a lease option, because, and I try to avoid recording it, because that allows you to basically sell the house but take it back without going through a foreclosure process, and it's really not your house anymore when you sell it on a contract for deed. Technically, there's a future period where you transfer title, but it's really like a sale. So I would.
The mortgage state, the title of the property actually goes into the name of the buyer, and it's filed at the courthouse, and the taxpayer of record is the buyer, and they have the title in their name. In a contract for deed or a land contract, the title remains in the name of the seller until X amount of payments are made, which is usually the entire amount of payments. And then at that point, the seller owes the buyer clean and good title. So that's the difference. In the first example, to get the title out of the buyer's name, you have to go through a process called foreclosure, which is different in every state. In the contract for deed or land contract situation, you don't have to go through that process called foreclosure. It's basically kind of an eviction process, right, Richard?
Right. In a contract for deed, especially, there's a concept called equitable title. And what this means is that if you sell the property to someone on a contract for deed, even though technically they don't own the property because you don't have to go through the judicial foreclosure process, in every other way they own the property, really. They have to pay the taxes, they have to, they can get homeowners insurance. Basically they do everything like they own the property. So it's pretty much almost like in states that have deeds of trust, and so they have equitable title. It's better, and you should talk to a lawyer about this, but it is better than a lease option, because a lease option you're still like the landlord. But a contract for deed, it's they own the property and equitably, and I would try to avoid recording that, although sometimes you can't. But if you record it, then it's going to cloud the title, and you may have to go to court and get a quiet title action if the what they call the vendee or the buyer reneges, and you have to get them out. So, but you still don't have to go through a whole mortgage foreclosure process. But if you avoid recording the lease option of the contract for deed, it's a lot simpler. So you can do that if you can.
I believe in Texas you have to record the deed. It keeps the seller from going and borrowing money on a house that he's given away the equitable title to.
Right.
Which is why they made the law, because people would sell things on contract for deed, and then they'd go encumber the house with some kind of loans, or they could get a judgment or something put against them, and it'd go against the wrong thing.
Right.
But and also there's end of year reporting requirements, meaning like you have to send out a statement at the end of each year. You've got between January the 1st and the end of January to send out a statement. Among other things, you have to send them how much interest they paid, so they have their interest for their write-offs, for their taxes. You have to tell them what their current balance is, and whether they're, if they're in good standing or if they owe late fees, or you have to give them just a general statement that has some very specific things in it. If you do not provide that, the penalty is like $250 a day up until the value of the house. So the reason why people quit doing contract for deeds in land contracts in Texas was because if you made a mistake in the reporting, the penalties were so severe that some people elected not to do that. But you'll hear all the time that contract for deeds are now illegal in Texas. That's completely wrong. They just have, if you don't do it right, there's some stiff penalties. And I know people that still do contract for deeds, and I've gone back and revisited them here lately. They're good tools. You just have to make sure that you go by the rules.
Well, yeah, I would definitely use those tools if I'm in a state with a bad foreclosure process. I would, for sure. And I don't really need them in California. I don't use them, but I would use them. I've used lease options before. And then there's yeah, go ahead.
In Texas, we have such a fast foreclosure time. It's so efficient that I just have gone with that because, there's not that much difference in the values and pains in one aspect than the other, and I chose to avoid the possibility of the big penalties. But
yeah.
Like you said, I would definitely use them if I was in this. I would definitely consider some other ways of doing things if I lived in a state where there was really harsh foreclosure. What am I trying to say? It's hard to get someone out of a house. And if I was selling houses and putting people in houses, I would look at some other way if I was in a state that made it hard on me.
Right. Possession before closing, short-term rental agreements, handshake agreements. I think we've covered the handshake agreements, how you handle that before, but what we're talking about here is if you want to get a down payment, which we all want to get a down payment. But if there's problems with the house that we're expecting the new owner to take care of, we're not going to be able to collect a down payment and expect them to finance a lot of times the improvements in the house. So they're going to say, well, I'll go ahead and fix the foundation, or I'll go ahead and put the appliances in the kitchen and fix the holes in the floors, and that's in lieu of my down payment. And you might say that's fine. So when you finish fixing the floors, putting the appliances in, or when you fix the foundation, that's when you can move in, or that's when you can I'll transfer title to you on the house. And you don't want to transfer title to the house on somebody and they haven't done that, and they promised to do that, and they haven't given you down payment, because once you transfer title to the house, you don't have much you can do about it. You can't get it back all that easily. So one solution might be you do a closing in 90 days, and and you're under contract. You have a purchase contract, and there's a short-term rental agreement or a short-term agreement that's an addendum to that, saying that during the contract period they're going to fix the foundation, or they're going to fix the floors in the kitchen or whatever. And when that's done, you're going to approve it, and then you're going to close. And if that's not done, then they lose whatever the down payment has been up till then, and you don't have to close. And I know we've done that. You've done that lots of times, Mitch. Correct? A variation of that.
Yeah, it would have been they would have lost a non-refundable deposit at that point if you put them in on a lease. You wouldn't call it a down payment, but it's essentially, we get the drift of what you're saying. And then I've done that a lot, because usually I also put in something there that they can't occupy the house. A lot of times the house isn't occupiable until they do the work. So there's so many variables on this that you could talk about it for a really long time. But one of the things I do is when I put them in on the lease, you might not get a sophisticated person to give you a $1,000 non-refundable rent deposit and sign a 3-month lease, and you might not get a sophisticated person to start putting his money into a house that you own, because he's only leasing it, right? But what I've done is, and I deal in the middle economic level to the lower economic level, and this has always worked fine for me, is I just take a blank piece of paper and I put only numbers on it. I have no words. I put numbers, and then at the end there's a set of initials, and this is how it goes. It goes sales price $85,000, down payment $5,000. Let's back up. There's no words. So on the paper it says $85,000 minus $5,000. I draw the line under it, put $80,000, 10%, $650. And so that's essentially the terms of a deal. And then you just turn it around and say, sir, would you recognize your initials 6 months from now or 3 months from now when this lease is due and we're supposed to consummate a sale? Would you recognize your initials at that point in time? And they say, of course I would. And they say, great, put your initials on the bottom of this piece of paper. And then they put the initials on the bottom, and you turn it around, you hold it up to their face, and you say, you're going to recognize this in 3 months, right? Because this is what we're going to do. And the reason why I'm doing this piece of paper is so that we don't have to remember these numbers. This is the sales price, this is the down payment, this is the balance, this is the interest rate, this is the amount of years, and this is the payment. All right, I'm going to put this in my folder. And usually that's good enough. I don't offer a copy, but if they ask for a copy, I give it to them. Because if you got into a dispute with them and they show up with that piece of paper, it's just not gonna mean anything. It's a piece of paper with like 5 or 6 numbers on it and a set of initials. And it wasn't even your initials, it was his initials. So that's kind of how I hedge my bet. But I also make the person moving in feel good that the numbers aren't going to change. So that's always the big fear, that they're going to go in and do this work, and then once they've fixed up your house, you're not going to want to sell them the house anymore at all or for the same terms. If there's a joke that goes around, yeah, I got someone in there fixing up my house. I hope he can afford it when he's done. It's a joke and we laugh. If you're being honest, which I am, and I don't ever want to jick these deals around. If I make an agreement, that's what I want. I want to receive that payment for however many years we're on that piece of paper. I don't want to take the house. I don't want to get one up on a man's work and take it from him. I just want the deal to go how he talked about. I just need this thing so that I'm in control in case he doesn't do what he says he's going to do and then tries to stick or tries to stay. That's why I need it. I need it in case he doesn't do what he says he was going to do. And it's also a good reminder for me because, as you can imagine, I got a lot of numbers going through my head. And 3 months from now, I probably would not remember what I told that guy. I certainly wouldn't remember the payment amount because those can get kind of, they're small numbers. I just don't remember those numbers. So I need that piece of paper as well to be in the file because I don't want to have to go try to remember because I'm not going to remember. So that's just one of the ways I do it. There may be better ways to do it, but I like that way, and it's worked well for me. Have you ever done it, Richard?
No, I never have. What I've done is I've done a purchase contract, and then we've just done a side agreement before we close. They go ahead and fix it up, and then we have a contract, and we just close on the contract when we make sure the work's been done.
Well, the only reason we do it in Texas is because we can only do a lease option for 6 months in Texas, so it causes us a little bit different problem.
I've not done a lease option. I've actually do an we sign a purchase contract, and we say it'll close in 90 days, and it can be extended by mutual consent 30 days, and that during that time they get the right to come in and do certain work on the house. And then if they don't do the work satisfactorily, then the contract's canceled and blah 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 like that.
That's a good way to do it. I mean, there's more than one way to do this, and you need to run any of these ideas past, your local attorney that knows about real estate, and they may even have some ideas of their own. Sometimes I've been there and they've had better ways to do things. I just wasn't smart enough to think of it, or I just hadn't been in the business long enough doing that particular angle. So.
Yeah, and that works really well. So it's possession. But it isn't even possession before closing. We just have a purchase contract, and they're allowed access to the property. We just have a side agreement. We write it out, and then it becomes part of the contract. And we don't let them move in, and we might, but if we let them move in, it's called possession before closing, and there's actually an addendum we use for that. That's something that happens frequently enough for the realtors to have a form for it. But what I'd rather do is have someone just do the work and not move in. I'd rather do that, and that way I just put it in a side agreement, and I don't give them what's called possession. They don't have the right to live there and to move their stuff there, anything. It's just like they have the right to work on the property, and they're going to own it when it's done. They know that because we've got a signed agreement. So and we're in escrow. So that's another way to do it. Let's move on to some things you might want to put in the just some things to consider. Buyers backing out. How often have you had this happen, Mitch?
It happens. If you're in this business, it's going to happen. I think you just learn that that's part of this business. And so especially if you're owner financing a property, if someone wants to back out, I'm glad I heard about it now before the deal went down than 6 months after they moved in the house, because it's a whole different problem then. I'm probably going to have a different attitude.
Yeah, here's the real essence of it, and you said this. The real essence of this is you're going to have to sometimes give people back their deposits. I don't care, even if it's a non-refundable deposit. You're just going to have to. I mean, sometimes people get nasty, and you just have to. You don't want to mess with people and stand on principle sometimes. You're just going to have to do it. That's just my experience,
I agree, and I've done it plenty of times.
Yeah, so we might say it's non-refundable, but if someone pushes us, we're going to refund it, or we think they're really a problem, they're like crazy, or they're various things where they might be able to, no matter how right we do things, there's always things that people can make trouble with. So buyers backing out, I'll give them their money back. I mean, most of the time. I might try to put a token effort, but I'll probably end up just giving their money back. Contract language, you might want to have clauses in your agreements for certain things. Let me see if I can find the ones that I'm using real quick here. This isn't complicated, and it depends on the kinds of deals you're writing. Sometimes if you write a deal with a short sale or an REO, it's going to be run by the bank, and you just can't do a lot of things because they just will throw it out. So if you're writing a deal with a seller and there's no bank that has to approve it, you have a lot of latitude, but you don't really have a lot of latitude for REOs. or short sales. Do you have some clauses you can think of that you include in yours as a standard in what you're doing?
I don't do a lot of that, but no, I really don't. I don't have anything standard.
Yeah, you know, the forms we're using now, the realtor forms, they actually have an inspection clause built in. We don't have to say subject to inspection and all that. It's like just check a box. I mean, it's like you really almost have to have that. You know, I like to have, we used to do things where we'd say or assignee or nominee as the buyer, but you really can't do that a lot of times anymore. It's a good idea if you can, but a lot of times you can't. That would let you substitute a different entity as the buyer and assign the contract. And you could always say, well, I might want to use it for my trust or my LLC. I'm not sure who I wanted to take title as far as the buyer, so that's why I put that in. That might work fine for a private party, but if you're gonna be involving an REO or short sale, they usually don't accept that. But I do like to have that if I can do it, because I actually have several entities. Like I may take title in an LLC I have that earns me a profit and I pay taxes on it, or I might do it in an LLC that is owned by my 401k and that goes right into the 401k, and I don't, that's, you know, and I'm not sure sometimes which way I want to go. So I might do that as a standard. I might try to do that as far as the title goes. But as I said, you can't really do that if the bank's involved. I like to avoid giving a deposit until, certainly if it's a short sale, I'll say no deposit until short sale approval by the lender. I like to do deposit the cash into escrow 24 hours before closing. The realtors always like to get a deposit. I don't like giving a deposit. We've talked about that. So I don't really do a whole lot of things here. Short sales have to have a short sale disclosure typically. The realtors will provide that, make sure it's included in your contract, and that gives you some disclosures to the seller, and there's a lot of things about short sales that have to be disclosed. You know, timing, like I said, to me the biggest thing is when all the contingencies are going to be removed and when the money goes into escrow, and I like to pay that at the last minute. So I can't, do you have anything else to add on this?
I think that pretty much covers it.
So the next thing I want to kind of mention is really we'll just spend a few minutes on this before we wrap up, and it's something that I've had a lot of people do and use. I mean, like a lot, and it's worked so effectively, and I've had people build a whole business around this. And this is a way for you to find your buyers, a way for you to find your sellers, and it's the 9-day house sale. And there's a lot of ways you can use the 9-day house sale. You can use it to find buyers. You can also use it to maximize your cash buyers, your down payments. So you can set a price and have a 9-day house sale so that you award the house to the person with the most cash. So the idea of a 9-day house sale is that instead of letting people look at the house over like a period of a few weeks and they all go and look at it at different times, you don't let people look at the house except over 1 day or 2 days, like a weekend, that we call the inspection period. And now, if you're going to have like 40 people look at a house over 2 weeks, instead of having them 2 or 3 a day over 2 weeks, you have 40 people in a single weekend, most of whom come in on Saturday morning. Well, what happens when everybody sees all these other people looking at a house? What do you think happens to the excitement level and the price and everything when everybody sees all these people looking at your house? Especially if, you know, they were thinking, well, this is a seller's market. I mean, it's a buyer's market, and we're going to take our time. Now they see 40 people in the house looking around, and they get all excited about it. So that's basically the principle of social proof of a 9-day house sale. It's getting everyone to look at the house over a single weekend. If you're renting a house out, if it's a rental, or if you've bought let's say you've bought a foreclosure or a REO and there's tenants in the property, you might be able to pay the tenants to vacate, so you're not going to have to show the house all the time while the tenants are in there. You just can do everything in a day or two over a weekend. So this is the best way of selling a house that's rented. You don't have to do a whole lot of cleanup. You know, you just do the things we talked about before and things we haven't talked about, perhaps about odors. And if they have a dog, you try to get the dog or a cat to visit someone else for the day or two. Very, very simple cleanup. You just know you're only going to be doing this for 1 or 2 days over a weekend. That's it. So it's not like you're going to be showing the house over a period of weeks. You have certain rules, bidding rules, which you read to people on the phone or you have on voicemail, and you give them a written handout of the rules on site. So it keeps you out of trouble. And you try to get everybody at the house to bid, even if they're only bidding a penny. You try to get everybody to bid, and you say, we're only going to call people that have a bid. And what I didn't say here, I'm going to skip to it right now, is you're going to take whatever you want to get for the house, and you're going to cut it in half, and that's where you're going to start from. This is the biggest issue people have with a 9-day house sale. So if you're, let's say, doing it for price, let's say you're expecting at $90,000 for your property, you could say we're going to start at $45,000. If you're doing it for down payment, you might say there's going to be a we're going to be bidding on based or you know on the down payment, which is going to start at $100. You just start very low, and then people will bid on the down payment as much cash as they have, and you'll end up getting a bigger down payment than you would have otherwise. If you're doing it on a price of a house, you'll get a higher price for the house than you probably would have otherwise by starting very low. So the reason you start low is that you attract people to the house so that you get a lot of people showing up. And people will say, are you really going to sell an $80,000 house for $40,000? And you say, yeah, we'll sell it at any realistic price. And it's in your bidding rules. So this is how you get a lot of people to look at the property. And you basically have people look at it over a weekend. You try to get them to bid on a piece of paper. And Sunday night, you call each person that's placed a bid, and you give them the opportunity to, you tell them what the highest bid is, and you give them the opportunity to raise their bid. That's basically it. And by Sunday night, you have the house sold. So it's just a way to sell a house very, very quickly and get the best price for the best down payment that you can. Have you done this, Mitch, any variation of this?
Yeah, I did this 7-day house sale back when that book was out. I think it was a 7-day house sale, but it was really kind of unique. I had 50 people in the front yard. I had put on the sign out in the front yard, you know, I wanted $90,000 for the house. It's funny you use that number because that's what I wanted. I had put $45,000 for sale, $45,000, and I had put OBO, which means or best offer, which was kind of taking me off the hook, right? And when I got to and then I put signs all over around the neighborhood, and I didn't put my phone number anywhere. I just put the date, you know, I put the date and the address, you know, I'll be at the house on this date. And so everyone was trying to find out who owned the house. And when I got to the house, I had 50 people in the front yard, and there was a tree that had been cut down in the house, so there was this nice stump that I could stand up on. It would get me like 2 feet higher than everybody else. And people were actually mad at me. They were yelling at me, saying, you know, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I haven't checked for you. And I just played dumb, and I looked like I was overwhelmed, and I was a little bit because there's all these people around me, and I was kind of getting mobbed. And people had their checkbooks out and wanted to write a check for $45,000 because, see, people only see what they want to see. They saw $45,000, but they didn't want to know about that OBO, that or best offer. So these guys were thinking the first person could write a check for $45,000 was going to get the house. I just acted confused. I got up on the stump, and there were some people pretty upset with me. And I said, you know, I'm really surprised at the turnout. I understand that some of you are very upset with me. I understand, and the rest of y'all can come into the house with me, and we'll see who wants to buy it. so like I told the people that were upset with me, you know, I know some of you are upset with me, and you probably just want to walk out of here right now. But the rest of you that still want to buy this house, let's go inside, and I'll show you the house. And then I acted confused, and I just had everybody start writing their offer down on a piece of paper. And they said, well, we're all going to get to see each other's offer? And I said, yeah, I don't mind. I just said, yeah, I don't mind. Just write it here on this legal pad. If you have an offer, write it down. And then we went back that night, and we did do the round robin, like you say, you know, you call back all the bidders. Yeah. And I sold the house. I sold the house for slightly under what I wanted, but, you know, this is a really great tactic for wholesale. because you're still given a great deal, and you just want to make a little bit. This is a super tactic for wholesale. If you're wholesaling houses, this is wonderful, because someone's still going to get a pretty dang good bargain, right?
I actually think, Mitch. I think, Mitch, if you just want to sell the house, it's great to get a market price. If you do it right, just a few little variations, and you did it pretty close to right. There were a few little wrinkles there. I think you'd be really surprised. You'll get a price, because we've had like, I don't know, hundreds of students that have done this, and like it's not always worked, but it works most of the time. And whenever they get a decent turnout, they get a market price. I mean, with real buyers. I really think it's more than just wholesaling, personally.
No, I'm saying, like, if that's your business to wholesale houses, and that's what you want to do with that house,
Right.
works good for that too. I mean,
Right.
But say, like, because the house hasn't been fixed up, it's got broken windows and everything, you can wholesale houses this way too. I understand what you're saying, and I did not do this sale the exact right way because.
Well, and I think you made a good point. I do think that it is really not good for houses that are really messed up. I would sell them the more conventional way. But if you have a house that's decent, it's not really in bad shape, it's probably ideal. But it's really worth doing. One thing is you get a lot of momentum in your business. You get a lot of buyers showing up. You get a lot of activity going on that will turn to your advantage later. And people will look at it and say, well, I have a house. Can you look at mine? And because they've seen all the people at your house. So puts you on the map in a big way. All kinds of things happen when you do this. You meet all these people that see how effective you've been at a bad market at getting all these people looking at your house and making offers, and then they want to do business with you, and they have houses for you to look at and stuff. So I think it's a really, really good way for the momentum. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we have a whole course on it, and it's a lot of stuff I don't want to repeat. But basically you put signs. The best method of promoting it are signs. Something like just says must sell Sunday, minimum $50,000, and having a phone number. And then when they call, you can have voicemail, which tells people all about the house and the rules, the bidding rules, and how the process works. And you only let people see the house on the weekend. You don't let them see it any time before the weekend. I mean, they'll drive by, but they can't go in the house till the inspection weekend. And you just get a lot of people. A lot of people I've had get 100, 150 people in the house, and over a weekend. I've had people where there were real estate open houses up and down the street, and they were empty, and the only activity was it looked like a busy restaurant with people pulling up and leaving and all kinds of activity in front of the house and people going in and coming out, crazy. And everyone else is sitting there, these realtors alone by themselves, with their flags and their signs and no one at their houses, and we just are crazy. So it's going to be really, really effective way of doing it. And so I just want to make you aware of it. Yeah, go ahead.
I forgot about that part. That was one of the parts on the signs. I had put a phone number to a recording, and the recording told them, really got them on fire about this house, but it didn't leave any other phone number. All it was this is the time I'm going to be at the house. You need to show up at 10 o'clock on Saturday. And then, it really did stir up a big commotion. I mean, it really did.
Yeah. So I really want to encourage you to try this out. Again, I wouldn't try it in a house that's really trashed, but if you have a house that could show decently, this can be a great way to get market and get you a lot of buyers and a lot of people. And we haven't done it with a down payment, but there's no reason why it wouldn't work for your down payment. The person with the highest down payment gets the house. So the idea of it is also in a small scale. You can use the same idea, because what you can do on a small scale is you can get a number of people looking at the house at the same time. So you go out and you have 3 or 4 parties looking at the house, and anytime you do that, you're running somewhat of a risk, because one person might talk to the other and sort of be negative and get the other's negative. But usually you have a big edge that way, because if you have 3 or 4 people you're showing the house to at the same time, they each see the others there, and it makes people really want the house more, and it makes them realize that it's in demand, and they're much more hungry for your house. Have you done that, Mitch?
I have. I recognize the potential of what you said, because the risk you run is that someone will talk your house down, but you know, I never get into that conversation with them. I'm not here to discuss the condition of the house. I'm here to sell this house. And just blow past it.
Yeah, but I think on the net, there's a net gain of doing it, and it's sort of a mini 9-day house sale. The idea of social proof and other people looking at the house at the same time. So you're much better off if you can do that than not doing that. So that's, I just wanted to be aware of it. You get a huge group of buyers. You can get word of mouth about people with houses you could buy. You meet realtors and mortgage brokers and people that fix up houses and contractors and neighbors, investors. So, I mean, I've had students who started this and they just built a really amazing business this way. And maybe they didn't do it forever, but they got started this way and just got a huge leg up because of the activity and the action and all the people that they met just in a few short weekends. So I'd really suggest that you consider trying it out, especially when you're getting started to sell a house.
I'll tell you another clue. Those people that wanted to write checks and that were upset with me, I called every one of them back to meet with them because they had money. So
wow.
Obviously they had money, checkbook out.
Yeah.
And I called them back to apologize, and I got in a conversation with them, and I said, would you like to know what I do? And they were very intrigued. A couple of them felt like they were duped or wanted to say false advertising or something, but it was right there on the sign, OBO or best offer. I didn't waste any time with those people.
Yeah.
But I did meet two people that had money, and I didn't get the money from those people exactly, but I recognized it as potential, and I came very close to working with those people. Just things happen, but someone wants to write you a check for a house at this auction or 9-day sale. Take note of that. Make sure you see when they write their name and phone number down, because you'll be wanting to call them about something else later.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this whole thing. You're going to build up. You not only can sell a house quickly, but you can build up all kinds of contacts, buyers and sellers. And one of the nice things about it is you'll especially with the way we're doing things, you're going to get people that are really disappointed and they have cash, and you know how much cash they have. And once you get another house, you've got a buyer, right built in for that other house. You might have 2 or 3 people that are serious on a house, and one person gets it, two other people don't get it. They're going to be disappointed. You can say, well, I have another house coming up, and you know how much of a down payment they have. Remember we had a student at a recent event that we did, and she put some ads in, and she got all kinds of people visiting the houses, these buyers, and then how much cash they had and what their situation was for income and things like that. Do you remember that?
I do remember it clearly.
Yeah, and you'll get that with a 9-day house sale. You'll get people that will come in, and you'll have met them. They'll see your house. They'll tell you, hey, I've got $10,000. I need to buy a house. You have another house I could buy, and it's going to be so much easier for you. So that's why I really, really suggest you try this out when you're starting out. I really think it's great. Well, let's wrap up, and next time, which I think is our last training we're going to do, which is we've actually done some extra bonus rounds here, and the next one is going to be on servicing notes and on foreclosures and selling notes. So we'll see you all then. Mitch, anything you want to add before we sign off for tonight?
Are you there, Richard?
I am.
I'm sorry, I had a technical difficulty.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard. Did you hear what I was saying? Like next time we're going to be discussing foreclosures, servicing notes, what goes wrong, what goes right, and selling notes, which I think will be our last session. That's where we actually gave people some bonuses here because we only had promised 10, and we'll be at, I think, 12.
This is one of my favorites, and I'm glad we're doing it and going going through the series and taking time to put this one in, because selling notes is my favorite thing to do. I've learned how to sell notes without discounts when it's possible, which is possible way more often than anyone will ever think. And I'm living proof that it works because I'm doing it. I'm excited to share that with you. It's going to be really fun. So I
Excellent.
look forward to the next.
Good. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
All right.
Appreciate it. Take care, Mitch.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.